One of your colleagues told us that if this should spiral into a pandemic, this flu could make COVID look like a walk in the park.
I agree.
You're scaring me.
I'm scared about it myself. I don't sleep very much these days, Bill.
The World Health Organization adopted its first international pandemic agreement during the 78th World Health Assembly in Geneva on Tuesday to bolster global cooperation in preventing and responding to future pandemics.
And they were predicting it. They were telling me, yes, there is a pandemic coming. It'll be caused by a virus coming out of a wild animal. What kind of a wild animal? Well, possibly a primate or a bat. What kind of a virus? Well, one that adapts quickly, such as an influenza or a coronavirus. Where would this happen? Well, somewhere where humans come in contact with wild animals. Oh, for instance, a wet market, for instance, in China. So that's what I was hearing 10 years ago, and that's what I described in my book. The scientists certainly knew this was coming. The public health people knew this was coming. They were alerting the political leaders. Political leaders, I think, in some countries, such as yours and such as mine and maybe a few others, just did not want to spend the money or the political capital to be prepared. It would cost X billions of dollars to be prepared. And you don't want to spend that. If you're a cynical politician, you don't want to spend that and then not have the pandemic happen during your term of office. And I think that essentially that is why they failed us so miserably in this situation.
The agreement outlines measures to enhance surveillance and ensure equitable access to vaccines and treatments following the uncoordinated global response to COVID-19. 124 countries voted in favor, while 11 abstained. The accord was touted as a gift to the world by the WHO Director General. Notably, the United States did not participate in the treaty, having withdrawn from the WHO under the Trump administration, criticizing the body as moribund.
How vulnerable are we in the event of another pandemic, and how effective will this new agreement be?
Well, we live in a time of immense vulnerability to diseases. The next pandemic could happen anytime. Due to population growth, the global flow of people and goods, the destruction of ecosystem, and global warming. I welcome the adoption of this agreement. Many countries with different interests and challenges all had to come together and put in great effort to make this agreement happen. But this is the only first step toward improving our global pandemic response. Ratification could take a very long time, and even once it's implemented, it's not a silver bullet.
The report contains one resolution to adopt the WHO Pandemic Agreement entitled Draft Resolution on the WHO Pandemic Agreement. Is the Assembly ready to adopt this resolution? I see no objection. The resolution is adopted.
Probably words you don't want to remember. Lockdown, social distancing, quarantine. Those concepts weren't widely understood 5 years ago when the world was hit by the coronavirus pandemic. COVID-19 killed around 7 million people worldwide. Well, fast forward to the present day, and one thing is clear. Preparing for the next global outbreak is vital. That's what the World Health Organization is doing. Member states have formally adopted the first global pandemic agreement. The legally binding pact is expected to enhance the world's collective ability to prevent and respond to future events. It outlines principles and tools to ensure equitable access to vaccines, treatment, and diagnostics during health emergencies. The agreement aims to bolster international coordination, but it also reaffirms national sovereignty. The WHO has clarified that it can't impose domestic policies like lockdowns or mandatory vaccinations.
Critics warn it gives the WHO too much sway over UK decisions, even though the treaty doesn't allow it to enforce any measures. Will Jones, editor of The Daily Sceptic, is with us afternoon to you, Will, and it's on that point, really. I mean, I think it'd be fair to say the WHO have got form in, shall we say, disappointing us during a pandemic.
Yeah, certainly. The World Health Organization really did itself no favors during COVID-19. It was fanatical about lockdowns from the get-go. It sent a delegation infamously to Wuhan in February 2020, just as things were getting going, when only China had locked down, looked at Wuhan's lockdown, came back singing the praises of China's response and recommending that lockdown, that appalling reaction to the virus, over the top, extreme reaction done in that totalitarian country, and recommending it to the whole world as the correct and proper response to this new virus. And it only got worse from there. And so we see this continued fanaticism about lockdowns. Then it recommended masks, famously changed its opinion on that as the public opinion changed with no new scientific evidence, completely altered, and started telling everyone to wear masks. And then, of course, it brought in the recommendations for rushed experimental vaccines with the mandates for those as well, and continued to recommend school closures throughout the pandemic, decimating education across the world and with lasting implications that we're continuing to live with. Yeah. So we have a lockdown fanatical World Health Organization. Now we have this new treaty that's been signed by the UK, by Starmer, yet again, signing away the UK sovereignty to this international body that is now being empowered to recommend lockdowns and all of these things that we thought and hoped that we were not going to see again from COVID, seeing them institutionalized and put onto this an international treaty footing in this new pandemic treaty.
Last night, you approved it. 124 member states voted in favor and none against. And today, we celebrate. Today, you have sent a loud message that multilateralism not only works, but is the only way to find shared solutions to shared threats. Let's not understate what you have achieved. You have made the world a safer place. I repeat, a safer place. It will not infringe on national sovereignty in any way, nor give the WHO Secretariat power to impose mask or vaccine mandate or lockdowns. Anyone who says it will is clearly mistaken. You, the member states, have made that very clear in the text of the agreement itself. Your adoption this morning of the WHO pandemic agreement will rank among the most significant achievements in the history of this organization and of global health.
And the World Health Organization approving a groundbreaking treaty on pandemic preparedness. 124 countries backed the agreement, requiring pharma companies reserve 20% of production for pandemic treatments. The treaty won't take effect until countries finalize pathogen sharing protocols. It aims to prevent the supply inequities witnessed during COVID.
Lockdown is written throughout the treaty, not the exact words, but what we do see is that we see that the definition of a pandemic, and this is reflected also in the parallel international health regulations which go hand in hand with this, the definition of a pandemic now includes that a pandemic necessarily includes by definition a whole of society and whole of government approach to responding to the virus. Now that, of course, whole of society, whole of government, that is exactly what we saw in the pandemic. That's no accident, and that is code for lockdowns and everything that we saw during COVID. And that's now written into the definition of a pandemic which the Director General of the World Health Organization has the sole discretion to call, and more than that, to call not just when there's a disease that's actually causing illness and hospitalizations and death, but just when he thinks that there is a risk, just a risk of one in his sole discretion and opinion. So we now have really, and that's all written into this treaty and into the international health regulations that go with it. So we've really seen a ramping up of the powers of the World Health Organization.
Well, I was listening to a select number of shrewd scientists, and they were predicting it. They were telling me, yes, there is a pandemic coming. It'll be caused by a virus.
Bird flu is now spreading through U.S. cattle for the first time, and experts warn that it could spark a future pandemic. Right now, the virus does not spread person to person, but doctors warn that could change. Bird flu was first detected in cattle early last year and now continues to rip through dairy herds and poultry flocks.
Going in depth tonight, we've all felt it at the store when we buy our eggs. The bird flu outbreak happening now is one of the largest animal disease outbreaks ever.
Fox Carolina's Christina Feliciano spoke with an expert from Clemson University about the bird flu and how long it could stick around.
Never once did I think I was going to have to deal with avian influenza, even the mild form, let alone high-path avian influenza.
For the past 3 years, the U.S. has been dealing with one of its largest animal health disease outbreaks that it's ever recorded.
Health news this noon, a group of virologists around the world are sounding the alarm on bird flu. The Global Virus Network says H5N1, which has spread to millions of birds and at least 70 humans, requires proactive surveillance.